Hello everyone, this is admissions and medical billing training on the PANDA system. If you do not have a training manual, please email me. My email address is Katie, K-A-T-I-E, at teamwilletts, it's TEAMWILLETTS.com, and request an admissions training manual. You're definitely going to want to follow along with that while we go through this training. There is some information in your manual about what PANDA stands for and why we're implementing the system. I'm not going to cover that in this training, it's just provided for reference. I'm going to jump down to the section on PANDA MU. So the PANDA MU system went live on May 1st at Woodward Academy, and we are rolling it out at 6 sequel sites whose medical departments will be using PANDA to attest to meaningful use in 2016. So meaningful use, for those of you that do not know, is a Center for Medicaid and Medicare program that awards incentives for using certified electronic health records. The goal is definitely to improve patient care, and basically it is really pushing providers to start using certified health technology, and we also have to submit information on specific criteria and objectives set forth by meaningful use. So those 6 sites that are testing meaningful use are now allowed to use PANDA, which has been recently certified, to attest to meaningful use successfully. There is a lot at stake with this project. There's a lot of incentive monies from meaningful use at stake, 6 years worth of incentive monies, state and Medicaid contracts. The state and Medicaid really is pushing us to get using a certified health record. So there are contracts at stake, and then there's penalties and risk of litigation if we don't implement a certified system. So our goal is to get the medical department using PANDA for as close as we can to 100% of their documentation. And for PANDA MU, just so everybody is clear, only the medical and admissions teams will be going live with PANDA MU. So the medical teams will be attesting to meaningful use and will be doing all medical documentation. The admissions team will be entering in their intake information, medical insurance information, so that the medical teams can perform the jobs that they need in the system. All other departments will utilize PANDA to access current medical information, but will not be documenting in the system. So they will be granted really a read-only type of access to PANDA. FAT PANDA is the full system that's going to be rolling out in early 2017. This is going to include case management, clinical, QA, critical incidents, direct care staff will be documented in PANDA for that. So that is just going to be a larger part of the system. We definitely know it's not ideal to roll out PANDA in 2 waves, but because of the certification process and the importance of meaningful use, we really had to focus on that in 2015 and 16 and get that launched, and the other pieces are going to come second. So just so everybody is clear on that. Attendance and quiz. Please make sure that you are signing a PANDA training roster. Any super user at your site has access to these training rosters. You should get with them, say, hey, I need to sign a training roster. I watched the video on YouTube. Sign off on that. And the second thing you really need to do is complete the quiz. There is a link to the quiz in the end of the training manual for admissions. So you'll click on that link, you'll launch the quiz. Basically, it's like 5 or 6 questions. You want to make sure that you do choose the admissions and medical billing quiz. And then once you hit submit, that combination of the quiz and your signature on a training roster is going to give you access to the live PANDA system. So basically, we review the quizzes, we review the training rosters, and then we request access through the Willets Help Desk. So users will not be granted access to the PANDA production system until you complete the training roster and the mandatory quiz. The next section in your training manual talks about HIPAA and EHR data security. Obviously, this is a very important component of this training manual. Each of you is really responsible for knowing about HIPAA and what we need to do to stay in compliance. We are really focusing with PANDA on the minimum necessary standard. This is a key protection component of the HIPAA privacy rule, and it really basically means that you should not access information in the PANDA system that is not required for you to do your job. For example, if you're assigned to patients A, B, and C, you should not be accessing patients D, E, and F in the PANDA system. We do have a really good safeguard in the PANDA system called the PANDA audit log. This was required for EMR certification. It tracks every single movement you make in the system. If you go to view, edit, document anything in the system, we track every movement. It's really important that we have that so we are able to pass any sort of audit we may have with HIPAA or with meaningful use, and it really protects our patients' data. The system also will automatically log you off if you're inactive in the system for 5 minutes. There's a screenshot in your manual. Basically, will give you a little warning that you're going to time out and you can decide to log out or stay logged in. There are a lot of penalties with regards to HIPAA. HIPAA is definitely a very serious rule that was passed by the federal government. It's so important for us to be responsible for protecting our patients' health information. Behavioral health information specifically and psychiatric information is highly regulated and protected. So as a professional, you should never access client information unless it directly relates to your job function. Never share your username and password, and always log off or close the PANDA system if you leave your computer. So you're really responsible for knowing about HIPAA and what is needed to protect patient health information. If you need additional information, please refer to your annual HIPAA and compliance trainings that CEQA provides for further information. All right, so that was some overall goals of PANDA admissions training. Want to provide an overview of how to navigate the system. You're going to gain some understanding of the PANDA patient portal and how to set up a portal user. We're also going to talk about rolling a referral into an admission and completing an intake on a new client. Medical insurance information, data entry is going to be discussed. And we're also going to talk about client demographics and client contact information. So first and foremost, you're going to log into the PANDA system using your SQL email and password. You do not need to type out the SQL use services at SQLuseservices.com when you enter into the PANDA system. All you need is your first name, last name. Once you get logged in, the first time you access the system, we're asking for you to please go in and update your time zone. If you click on your name in the upper right-hand corner and select Profile Settings, here is your time zone field. Mine is set to Central. I'm in Central time zone. The default is Eastern. So if you're in Eastern time zone, don't feel like you have to go in and double check this, but you sure can. Make sure you're setting your time zone accurately because the system does timestamp documentation, and you want to make sure we're timestamping accurately for your time zone. Also in here, if you're interested in changing the color of your PANDA theme, you can do that by using this theme drop-down. I have seen all colors in different screenshots, but I personally prefer the black and white, so I'm just going to stick with that. Go ahead and save that information after you've updated your time zone. The next section on your training manual is navigating the PANDA system. So as you can see with PANDA, all the menu items are going to appear here on the left-hand side. The menu items that you see and the sub-menu items that you see is specifically related to the security provided to you because of your job function. Some of you guys will only have admission security. Some of you will have a combination of admissions and medical because you enter some medications or you enter some allergies in your intake process. So what you have access to is specifically related to your PANDA security. If you find that you don't have access to something you need, please submit a ticket in our ticket process. If you send an email to panda@teamwillis.com, that creates a support ticket. If you just tell them, hey, I need access to something, or the medications entry or allergies or something along those lines, we can get that updated for you. There's a bunch of icons in your manual. I'm not going to cover all of these, but I do want to cover the first three because they are the most important and you're going to see them the most consistently. So the first one is the green plus sign. You're going to always use that to add new documentation to the system. To view additional details on documentation already in the system, you'll use that blue eye icon. And then to edit documentation, you'll use the orange pen and paper icon next to the item. So those other icons in there are available for reference, and you will see them throughout the system. In PANDA, many screens you'll see a little blue down arrow that is the client header. So let me find that. I believe I can find it under medical insurance here. I'm going to go ahead and select my test client here. So you'll see this down arrow in this upper right hand corner. If you click on that down arrow, it's going to give you the PANDA client header. This was specifically requested by some of the residential sites because they wanted the photo of their clients available in more locations. I know some of our outpatient sites are moving towards getting photos in the system, and some of the sites don't take any sort of photos of clients, which is totally fine also. But it does make the photo available. There is some other really critical information available: the birth date of the client, the sex of the client, any allergies they may have will be visible, and medical alerts, which is also important. is visible through this client header. And then if I want to hide the client header again, I just hit that down arrow and it hides that header. Required fields in the PANDA system are all marked with a red asterisk, and you will see those throughout the system. You cannot save documentation and move forward until you complete fields marked with the red asterisk. And the system will alert you if you try to move forward without completing those. Selecting a client, you saw that just briefly now when I went and launched the medical insurance screen. It asked me if I wanted to set a client. If I haven't set a client and I go to one of my menu items, it's going to require that I set a client. If I need to change my client at any time throughout my documentation processes, you can just click on this client field up at the top, type in a few letters, and then just select your client from the drop-down. So you can easily really change the client from nearly every screen in the PANDA system. If you ever get lost in the system, which I don't anticipate is going to happen very frequently since it is really easy to navigate, you can click on the PANDA header in the upper left-hand corner, and that's going to take you back to the main dashboard and main home screen. All right, let's jump into some of these menu items. First, we're going to talk about the admin menu. With the admin menu, we're going to focus on the patient portal and setting up patients as portal users. So when I go to admin, you're going to see a lot of options, but I promise when you guys go to admin, all you're going to see is admin and portal user. So basically the portal user will appear right here where this assessments is visible. So let's talk about the patient portal. This is a meaningful use objective, and the requirement is that we give access to 50% of our patients when it comes to the patient portal. And this is a per provider percentage. So for Dr. Jones, it has to be 50%. For Dr. Smith, it would need to be 50%. So the goal for us really is to get as close to 100% as possible. And this is one meaningful use requirement that is a really great opportunity for the SQL admissions and intake types of teams to help us achieve our meaningful use objectives. There are 10 meaningful use objectives, and nearly all of them fall in the medical department. But this is one objective that really can the admissions team can help with, which I think would be awesome. So with regards to the patient portal, you're probably wondering what that is. So it's a website where patients can view, download, and transmit their health information. It contains kind of basic health information. I'm sure some of you maybe have a patient portal for the doctor's office that you currently go to. You can go log in and see your current medication list. You could see allergies, diagnosis that are on in your patient chart. It's just kind of a snapshot of your patient chart within the PANDA system. It will not contain any detailed notes. So no medical notes, no psychiatric notes, psychiatric eval, those types of things will not be visible on the portal. It is just really basically a snapshot of information. The portal also provides a platform for secure communication between clients and SQL staff. There is a way in the system for us to secure message clients. So if you need to send a message to a patient and you just want to remind them of an appointment or something that you need to tell them about, maybe a medication, you can easily do that now using the PANDA system. It's much more secure than email, and you can send protected health information through the secure messaging process. So how do people get access to the patient portal? So each person has to be set up as a portal user in PANDA to have access to the patient portal. Anyone who has consent to view a client's medical information can be set up as a portal user. So for the outpatient sites, I do anticipate that most of the time you guys will be giving access to the client. Residential sites are leaning more towards the client's legal guardian or the referring worker. And I think with the outpatient sites, those sites that see pediatric patients, a legal guardian would be appropriate in a lot of situations for you guys too. So basically, for a portal, you could give access to the client, a legal guardian, or a referring worker. Anyone who has a consent to view a client's medical information can be set up. So we're really recommending, I think this is the best workflow, when you complete the intake process, that you set the client up as a portal user. It's really fast, it's really easy. Just ask them, hey, we have a new patient portal where you can view some of your medical information. Would you like access? All that's required is an email. We don't send them any sort of additional emails for any reason. They just get an email to launch the portal, and then they get an email if they get a secure message from their provider or from somebody from the medical team. So for the portal user, when I walk through this process, all I do is hit this green plus sign. I enter in the email I enter in the patient, or excuse me, the name of the portal user. And then I want to double check and make sure this is checked to active. If it's not checked to active, this person cannot access the portal. The time zone, if this person is in Eastern time zone, you would just keep that the same. That is the default. If they are in a different time zone, you can update that. And then the client's field is the person's health information that you're giving access to. So for this example, I'm just going to say that Pam Smith is Panda Smith's legal guardian. So I'm giving access to Pam for Panda's medical information. When you move down the road, especially maybe more at the residential sites, if you have a worker that has maybe 3 or 4 clients that are at different SQL programs, those clients can be added in addition. So you could have 4 different clients listed, and that worker can log into one portal and view information on all 4 of those clients. So I will let you know that in the sandbox, this functionality does not work because it's not connected to anything. We definitely don't want people getting emails coming out of the sandbox since it's a test environment. So I'm going to go ahead and cancel out of this because I will receive an error. One thing to note, when you save that information, it sends an email immediately to that person, that email address that was entered, and it says, "Welcome to the SQL Youth and Family Services patient portal. Please follow this link to log in and set up your password." So they'll get a link, they can launch that, they can go to the portal, they can send secure messages, or they can view their patient health information. I think it's going to be a great functionality. I think that once people start using it, they're really going to think it's helpful, especially for the secure messaging component. And patients appreciate having access to their health information. All right, let's jump to the admissions menu. So in this section, we're going to talk about rolling a referral from the PANDA pipeline into an admission, admitting a new client who has not been entered as a referral, entering medical insurance, and completing the PANDA intake form. So completing an intake. So there are 2 ways to complete an admission in PANDA. You can first roll a referral from the PANDA pipeline into an admission, or second, you can create a new client. So there's 2 ways. With regards to rolling a referral, there is information in your training manual. When you roll a referral into an admission, there's 5 fields that are going to roll over from the referral section to the intake process. And that will be the first name, last name, date of birth, the state of the patient, and the sex and gender, sex or gender. So those items will all roll in. I think there is an advantage to sites getting up and using the pipeline prior to going live with PANDA. It will allow them to save a little time on data entry when they can just roll referrals directly into intakes. So if I'm going to roll a referral, I'm just going to search for that referral's name here. I only have a couple people in here because it is a test environment. So what you would do is type in a few letters, and then you would select that person and hit choose here. If you want to create a new client, I'm just going to enter the information that they're requesting here. And then I would select my location, and only your location is going to appear in this dropdown. If you have multiple locations that you work at, then you would see those multiple locations. So once I hit create a new client, the system searches to make sure that I'm not creating a duplicate client. It searches based on last name and birth date. So in this situation, I do have an existing client named Panda Smith with the exact same birth date. That's not the same patient for me, so I'm not going to go ahead and select the patient that's currently in the system. I'm going to create a new client. So I'm just going to hit that create new client, and it's going to create a brand new intake for me, and I can get my client admitted to the system. With this intake form, there are required fields marked with the red asterisk. Feel free, if your site wants to enter in additional information, there are a lot of fields in here that aren't necessarily required, but some programs really want that information on their clients. So make sure you're touching base with your site and your program and selecting the items that are most appropriate for you. The dorm field for the outpatient sites, this is only going to have one item here, and it's just going to be outpatient clinic. That dorm field needed to remain for the residential sites, so the outpatient clinic will be available. Date of admission, when I click in this field, I'm going to get a time of right here, right now is the point of admission. If I need to change this, I can backdate it by using the calendar. If I need to change the time, there's a little clock icon at the bottom, and you can change the time of the intake process. If you need to change to PM, you can easily do that using that button. Social Security number is not required but can be entered. Birth date I already entered on that first intake screen, so I'm just going to tab through. I found that that is definitely the fastest way to complete this form. So just work your way through entering the information that's required. Home country is required, but it will default to the United States. Program is another required field. I'm going to select community residential. Again, I'm tabbing through. Phone number is required. The system will check to make sure you have a valid phone number, so please be aware of that. And these last few fields were required for meaningful use reporting. So you can identify the race and ethnicity of the patient. If they decline to specify, you can just document that. And last but not least is the preferred language. That does default to English, but can be changed just by clicking in that field and selecting or typing a few letters of their language. So I've completed my intake form. I'm just going to save this information. So you'll notice that once I saved my intake form, it immediately takes me to the client demographics screen. And just so everybody's clear, client demographics is found under client demographics right here. So the intake form, if I go back and I say, oh my gosh, I had a mistake on Bear Smith's documentation, I have his address is incorrect. If I try to go back to this intake to correct that information, it's not going to allow me to correct new information. It's going to create a brand new intake. So anytime you need to edit any of the information that was entered at intake, you'll come to the client demographics section. I can come in here, I can click on a field, and I can easily change any documentation I want. If I want to save my documentation, I would hit this checkbox. If I would want to cancel out of this information and not save my changes, I would hit the X. So I'm going to go ahead and save my changes. But you can come into any of these fields and add additional information or make any edits that you would like. If you want to add a photo, just click on the little red camera and you can upload any photo that's on your desktop or in your computer system. All right, now we've completed an intake. We've talked about the referral rolling intake and a brand new client intake. Now let's talk about medical insurance. So programs really could have billing, admissions, or medical staff enter this information into PANDA. I know a lot of people wear different hats at different programs. This information is specifically for medical billing only. I can tell you that we really did not want to embark on anything related to medical insurance or medical billing when we first started the project for PANDA MU. And we ended up having to kind of delve into this a little bit because of our lab component. We've chosen to connect with a third-party lab vendor that's going to allow us to send our labs electronically and receive results electronically if you work with some of the larger labs like the LabCorp and the Quest. So they require us to send the medical insurance information to the lab if we send an electronic lab. That way the lab can bill insurance, we're not involved in it in any way, and that patient receives correct billing processes for their medical insurance in their labs. So for the medical insurance screen, this is a couple-part process. For the residential sites, we have set up the ability for an auto-populate of the guarantor, since the residential sites seem to always have the site themselves as the guarantor. So if you're at Woodward Academy, the guarantor for all the patients there is Woodward Academy. And that will default. We've set that up in the system. For the outpatient sites, there's no real way to set a guarantor because you have so many different guarantors. Every client has a different one. So to add the guarantor, you're going to click on this gear icon, and you need to click through these fields and add the information for your guarantor. So you're going to add the name, hit that checkbox, add the last name, hit the checkbox. This process can be just a little bit tedious. Thankfully, we only need to do it one time. We have had a request to add a copy from client button. I can't tell you exactly if and when that is going to occur, but I do think that's a great suggestion because it does seem like the client is often the guarantor. So we're definitely in consideration of that for this section. Company name, if they don't have a company, you can just put NA here. I'm just going to put sequel. And then contact type is required. So we're going to say that Bear is his own guarantor. So now I've entered the guarantor information. Now I need to enter the actual medical insurance information. And I can do that by hitting this green plus sign. If I hit the green plus sign before I enter the guarantor, the system is not going to let me move forward. You have to enter the guarantor first. So you will notice that we have a copy from guarantor button here. Hopefully that's going to save you guys some time. There has been a request to add copy from client here also. So I'm sure that is going to be in the works. I'm going to go ahead and use that button to save time on this training. So copy from guarantor will pull all that information from the guarantor into this section. There are additional fields here, but none of them are required. This bottom section is actually the insurance information. So if my patient has, let's say they have Medicaid. Well, you got to spell Medicaid correctly first. I apologize. It's a Monday. So I would type in Medicaid and I would scroll through to find the Medicaid that was most appropriate for my site. All the Medicaids should be listed in here. This list of insurance providers is provided by the federal government. It's supposed to include all insurance providers in the United States. If there's a situation where you run into something you cannot find, please let us know. We'll do our best to get that added as quickly as possible. Subscriber ID would be the Medicaid ID, or in Blue Cross Blue Shield or United Healthcare would just be that subscriber ID. Some insurance providers have a group number, some do not, so that field is not required but should be entered if you do have a group number. Relationship, I'm going to go with self for this. And then this primary insurance, this question is definitely important because the primary insurance is the one that's sent directly to the lab. So if this is primary, make sure we're designating it as primary. If you have to add additional insurances, you will go through the same process again, and then you can document that as secondary or tertiary, etc. I'm going to go ahead and save that information. So if I had a secondary insurance or tertiary insurance, I would just hit this green plus sign again. It would allow me to enter an entirely new insurance for this patient. All right. We have covered medical insurance. So for the next section, the PANDA client menu, we're going to talk about three things. We're going to talk about the client demographics, which we touched on briefly already. We're going to talk about entering client contacts, and I'm also going to talk about secure messaging for the patient portal, just so you guys know how that works. So under the client menu, I'm going to start at the top, work my way down. Here's the demographic screen. We already touched on this briefly. I just want to make sure everybody's clear on it. If I need to update any information from the intake, or if information has changed, let's say the phone number for the patient's changed, I could come in here and make any edits that I need. And then to save that information, I just hit that green checkbox. So this is the place to come to enter and edit any sort of client demographic information. The next item I'm going to talk about is contacts. So we are recommending, and each site, we make recommendations for what we feel is best. Each site, really, it's up to them to decide what works best for their workflow. Our recommendation for client contacts is that the emergency contact and the legal guardian be entered into PANDA. Obviously, that's not applicable for all patients. If you have an adult patient, they're not going to have a legal guardian most of the time. But the recommendation, especially for pediatric patients, would be to have both in there. I know that there are some programs that don't collect the emergency contact based on conversations I've had. So it's really up to you to decide how you want to use this contact section. So with contacts, really easy to add. All you do is hit this green plus sign. You can search for a contact. This would probably be most likely used for sites that have a social worker listed as a contact, and maybe that social worker is linked to 4 or 5 different clients. So you could easily just type in a few items, a few letters in here, select that item from the drop down, and then you can add that contact to this client also. I'm going to go ahead and create a new contact. So when I hit create new contact, there's going to be a few required fields. First name and last name is required. Address fields are here down below. They are not required. Definitely want to make sure you're entering in a phone number, whether it's a cell or work phone or home phone. I'm going to update the contact type because I want this to be known that this is the legal guardian for the client. And for this example, I'm just going to say this is emergency contact also. And then I'm going to save that information. Oh, excuse me. I ran into an error. All right, so I definitely need to look into that. But with the client contacts, you can just go through, you can add client contacts using that green plus sign. If you need to edit a client contact, you can use that edit pen and paper icon that we talked about at the beginning of training. So client contacts will always appear under client and under contacts section here. All right, lastly in this training, I want to talk about secure messaging. So we touched base on secure messaging a little bit when we talked about the patient portal, and we talked about setting up portal users. So with regards to sending portal messages or sending secure messages, you can contact a client through the PANDA system, and they will receive an email basically saying, hey, you have a new secure message in the Sequel Youth and Family Services patient portal. And they can follow the link, and they can go to the message, they can respond to the message if they want, or they can just view the message. So if I want to send a new secure message, I'm just going to hit this green plus sign. I'm going to select the portal user I want to send a message to. I think I'm just going to select one of these social workers. I'm going to choose a client. I'm just going to use appointment reminder for my example. Maybe a lot more detailed than that, but you could send information on medications, being at the pharmacy, or there's just a lot of different options available for the portal. Any sort of communications you want to send to a client, you can do that through the secure messaging process. Again, I will tell you this is not set up correctly in the sandbox because we do not want secure messages or emails being sent out. We probably would just get a whole lot of errors since we've created some generic and fake email addresses. So basically what you would do is you would hit send. That would send the message to the patient's email, and they would get that link with that notification that they had a secure message. And that person could log into the system and view their secure message. If you receive a secure message, they'll appear here in this alerts item next to this little bell. You would just click on that, and you would see if you had a secure message. It would just say new secure message. Would appear at this top, and you would just click on it, and then you could see that secure message for that patient. When you do open that secure message, I did put a little screenshot of that in your training manual. You can use the blue reply button and send a message back to the patient and communicate back and forth through the PANDA system. All right, I'm at the end of your training manual. I did want to talk about a few things. So PANDA Go Live support. Each department has at least 2 super users who should be utilized as the first line of support for PANDA once you guys go live. They have been through some additional training. They've been kind of our point people at each site for the project, have been super helpful. Very thankful for everything that they have done. And they are going to be really the first line of support on the ground for Go Live. So if you have a question, please reach out to a super user first. Ask them your question. And if they cannot answer your question, send an email to panda@teamwillits.com. Sending that email creates a support ticket in the Willits support ticket system, and it will allow us to track your issues and respond to you as quickly as we can. So once you submit a support ticket, someone from Sequel or Willits will follow up with you either by phone or email to help you with your issue or help find a resolution. I can tell you that a lot of the training questions are going to be coming to myself and to Amber. And then a lot of the IT focused, if it's a technical problem or a login issue, something like that, is going to go to the Willits IT team for their support. When you create the email, please make sure your contact information is included. Most of the time it should be. I know everybody mainly has a signature on their email, but please be aware of that. And if you have a high priority issue, please note that in the the beginning line of your email. And I'll tell you that high priority issues really are only those that impact patient safety. So please don't note something as a high priority if it is not a safety issue for our patients. One other thing I might add is the PANDA suggestion box. We have created a PANDA suggestion box on the SQL portal, on the SQL staff portal. And if you log into the SQL portal, there is a little section in there on PANDA. It has the PANDA graphic. If you click on that section, it is going to launch some information about the PANDA system, and you're going to see a big graphic. It's orange and white, orange, black, and white. That is basically the PANDA suggestion box. So if you click on that, you can easily add a suggestion. We please ask that you add your suggestions to the PANDA suggestion box and not send an email to that panda@teamwillets.com, just because that really is a support issue, support ticket system. And the PANDA suggestion box, those items are going to be reviewed by SQL staff, and SQL will determine what items they want to pursue with regards to improvements to the system. But please go to that PANDA suggestion box. I know you guys all have a lot of great suggestions on how we can improve the system. Next, there's a section on the PANDA Sandbox. We have created this training environment, the PANDA Sandbox. I'm using it right now. You can tell that I'm in the PANDA Sandbox because if you look at the logo, there's a little pile of sand, and then there's also a little shovel. So please note, when you are in the system, make sure you're in the sandbox if you want to be in the sandbox. If you're entering live client data, make sure you're in the live environment. It will just have the regular PANDA logo with no sand or no shovel in that. It is really critical. We definitely don't want to enter sandbox information into the live environment. So please double check on that. There is a link to the sandbox in your training manual. Once you guys complete the roster and your quiz, you will get access to the sandbox and you will get access to the live environment. So please make sure you're submitting those items to get your access. Since we're talking about access and attendance, please make sure you are completing your training roster and completing your quiz. So there is a link to the quiz at the end of your training manual. It's really easy to go there. I suggest copying and pasting from your training manual into the URL field, just because it seems a lot easier than having to type out information. But when you log in, you're going to see the big PANDA logo, become a certified PANDA user. So find your quiz. We've just talked about admissions and billing, so it's going to be quiz number 2. I'm just going to click on that. I'm going to enter in my name here, and then I'm going to select my location from the drop down. All the SQL sites should be in there. And then I'm going to scroll through and basically answer these questions. Many of them are multiple choice. Answer these questions and hit submit. And then those quizzes are actually sent to Mary Ann Birmingham for her review. The quizzes are really straightforward, so I don't think anybody's going to have any issue with that. All right, well, that was all I needed to cover today. I really appreciate everybody's time and for your attendance in PANDA admissions and medical billing training. If you have questions, always feel free to reach out to me. My email again is Katie, Katie, @teamwillets.com. If you have any questions, reach out to me, or you can always submit a ticket to the panda@teamwillets.com, and I can reach you that way also. I thank you again for all your time, and have a great day.